What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 568th episode of the Pokemon Podcast. It's super effective. I'm your host, Steve. With me is Hannah.
I haven't run into a Galarian bird in Pokemon GO in this entire last week, and I have done my adventure incense every day, except maybe exactly 1 week ago.
Get good.
Greg also here.
I did. I've only played with the Daily Incense twice. And Galarian, which one was it? Zapdos, maybe? I don't remember. It came, I'm like, I'll Golden Raz, I'll throw a ball. It's like, nope. I went, okay, bye. And then it's been so abysmally hot out, and I was like, why am I staring at my phone? No, I'm not doing this anymore. So I've only played the Daily Incense twice because I find it exhausting.
It was very hot out.
Yeah, I mean, it was on Thursday I went out and I'm like, oh, it's 90.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to melt out here. I did not plan accordingly on this walk because I went the sunny path instead of the shady path, and that was a bad idea.
Well, we do have Pokemon Go stuff to talk about since there's a new season. But before we do that, let's talk about all the Scarlet and Violet stuff. And there's not a lot.
Those raids ain't coming back.
Yeah, there's still been no news.
There's nothing. No raids, no how, never again. They realized it was a terrible mistake. They've gone back on everything. They've just pulled the plug. Call it. It's over.
We are recording this on Sunday morning. Normally new raids get announced on Sunday night, so we'll see. We'll see.
I mean, so far each week has been a big old zero.
It has been almost. I'm looking at my calendar. Got my raid calendar up. It has been almost a full month of no raids. Well, obviously, like, the 5-star and 6-star raids still work, but like no promoted raids. Let's get into the first bit of news here, which is Pokemon Home. It updated. It updated actually on time. They estimated that it would be down for 6 hours. They said that the complete rollout would take about 24 hours after that. So some people got in like right away. Some people got in, 10 hours later. Just they had to like slowly roll it out to everyone. But it worked, and it allowed some new Pokemon in. Those Pokemon have been in the game code since day one. So very similar to Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield had a bunch of Pokemon that were hidden in the code.
Hidden.
The Mewtwo was hidden the entire time. So it updated from, I think it was 2.1 or something like that to 3.0. And it's not much different. It's kind of the same $15.99 a year app it always has been, but how is your my Pokemon Go experience or my Pokemon Home experience was, let me move all these Pokemon over and check if they're big or tiny.
I haven't moved anything. I sort of sat down and realized, like, I haven't done like the postcard thing. I haven't done the Gimme Ghoul thing. I haven't done home updates. And like, I really literally, when it's community day, I'm like, oh, I need to send 25 things to home so I have room for community day. And that has been my limit of doing things in home for about a year now. So I don't know. Like, I haven't even moved anything from Arceus into home. I've done nothing.
I'm in a similar boat. I think the most interesting thing about this is Carbink.
You gotta have Carbink and Diancie.
Do you? There's a question there.
I think lore-wise, yes.
Yeah, but none of this works lore-wise.
No.
They didn't introduce it in the game in any way. There was no sort of storyline. There was just these Pokemon, you can bring them in now. And you can store your Pokemon from Scarlet and Violet in a place that if there's another game-breaking bug, they'll be a little more safe, probably. But right now, we're good on that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, the legendary selection didn't really surprise me. Mostly because, like, it seemed all... If you were a legendary in Scarlet and Violet... Sorry, if you were a legendary in Sword and Shield, you got moved over. And then if you were from Legends Arceus, you got moved over. And then, like, Mewtwo and Mew are cool.
Yeah, they're always there. Wasn't there a weird issue where if you caught it in Go, you couldn't move it over immediately?
Okay, yes, good call. We should talk about that. This is not it is a weird issue. It is not a new issue. It has been around since Sword and Shield. So for whatever reason, Pokemon Go Pokemon are treated as like second class Pokemon. They don't have like the rights that the main series Pokemon have. So you need to like, so if you had a Lugia, Lugia doesn't work because he doesn't go to Scarlet and Violet. If you had a Mesprit or an Azelf from Pokemon Go, you cannot move those into Scarlet and Violet without moving a Mesprit from either BDSP or Sun and Moon or Legends Arceus over into that game first. There is a workaround. So if I traded my Pokemon Go Mesprit to Hannah in Pokemon Home, and she traded me her Pokemon Go Mesprit, then we can move those Mesprits into Scarlet and Violet.
That's wild. So that doesn't get rid of the Go mark on them, does it?
No, it doesn't. Neither does moving a non-Go Mesprit get rid of the Go mark, but it opens it up. And this, again, this has been around. This is not a bug. This is the same thing that's been around since Sword and Shield.
I mean, it's hard to call that a feature. Like, what is that feature? What is the point? Like, that is such a weird thing. It's like, well, I caught them in here, but if I didn't get them in some other way through some other game, they're just trapped until...
Pretty much.
Yes.
That's so weird. Oh, Ilka.
I don't know what the thought process is of like...
You can just end it there. I don't know what the thought process is. Like, this is a thing for all of Pokemon Go.
If it's like, well, we don't want people moving over their Mew from Pokemon Go. So, okay, Mew's a really good example, I actually think. What was the example I used before, Mesprit? Mew's a better example because, like, in the past, the old ways to get Mew were to, like, walk into Toys R Us, harass the 16-year-old employee working there to, like, link trade you the Mew, and then you would do that, and then they still hate their job and their life, and then you walk out with a Mew, right? Same thing for GameStop, right? No one at GameStop's happy when you're walking in and getting a code card. But it's, like, very easy, assuming that you live close enough to a GameStop or a Toys R Us. And then you have it. At least with, like, the Mew in Pokemon Go, you have to get to level 40. You have to do, like, 100 excellent throws or, like, 40. I don't even remember what the quest line it is. It was long. It was long.
It was long and tiring.
So it's not even like, well, we don't want Pokemon Go players to send, like, easy mythicals over because all the mythicals in Pokemon Go are... You gotta work really hard for them.
Not all of them. There is Deoxys.
That's true, yeah. Deoxys and Darkrai. But at least in that, you have to pay $1.
At least.
I mean, I paid a lot more walking into that GameStop, I think.
The only thing I can think of is the capitalistic thing of, like, hey, go buy a main series game.
So weird.
Or some sort of arbitrary, these Pokemon are worth less and don't matter as much and don't mean as much. Some sort of thing related to that. That is probably being rebalanced as the games get older and as things move along, but if this has been a thing for a long time, I wouldn't be surprised if when Go was first linked to Home, there was some sort of weird value judgment there.
Well, when Go was first linked to Home, it was only Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee. So it was only one way. And then when the big like Pokemon Sword and Shield Home thing happened, that's when this transfer thing started. There's no secret that there is value to Pokemon from at least Game Freak's perspective. That's why we still don't have. That's why they still shiny lock Pokemon. That's why we still don't have shiny Victini or shiny Keldeo. So there is some weird value thing internally that they do. But like even non. Like you could even argue with like Sun and Moon to Ultra Sun and Moon, like they're pretty much the same game. But hey, pay us $40 more and we'll give you 5 new Pokemon. We'll give you technically like 4 because you'd have to buy both versions to get the other one. But like it was like what Blacephalon, Stagataka, Poipole, Naganadel, and Zeraora. Like those were the only 5 new Pokemon for a $40 experience.
Heck yeah.
The thing, somebody mentioned this in my Twitch stream. They were like, Steve, you said a couple of years ago that this was, I think it was around when they announced the National Dex cut. And they said the thing you said ultimately came true, which was as we keep going deeper and deeper, because there are cuts in the Pokedex, they are now making you realize that you are missing games that have those Pokemon. Like right now, as of this recording, one of the rarest Pokemon is just Enamorus. She is just incredibly rare because she's in one game. And like Kubfu, Urshifu, like you could start a fresh game of Sword and Shield, get to this train station, go over to the Isle of Armor, and get Kubfu pretty quickly. You could probably get Kubfu in like maybe 45 minutes of playing Sword and Shield.
Yeah.
Like Enamorus, you have to pretty much go through all of Legends Arceus to get her.
There's a lot of work that has to be put in for that Pokemon.
And like if they keep cutting well, they will, right? We have like 5 main series games. They're not doing a game with all of them anymore. Like if they keep cutting that kind of stuff, they will artificially increase the difficulty of getting Pokemon because systems will change or people will lose their games or like they didn't finish those games or, you know, a game that was really easy to get, you know, it was really easy to get Vivione in X and Y. And then all of a sudden, right before Scarlet and Violet, people were like, I'm missing Vivione or Vivione's really hard to get. Or like Deerling was a big problem for a long time for people. So it's like they cycle this over and over, which, they didn't add any like new.
It's the joy of false scarcity.
They didn't add any like new features. Like you still can't check marks in the Switch version. Ultimately, like the apps seem exactly the same. They seem very sluggish right now because so many people are trying to connect. They added new stickers.
Hey, come to my room.
That they added the changing of the moves, which is like, okay, I guess you can convert your what are they called? Your Pokemon home points to LP points. So 1 Pokemon point, and you can only hold, I think, 99,999. So 1 Pokemon home point converts to 10 LP. So ultimately, if you had max home points, it would convert to like 1.2, 1.6 million, something like 1.4 million, maybe. It's not a good. It's not great at all. Like you can spend 1 million league points on like what, like 100 vitamins or something. Like you can burn through it instantly.
I've spent no league points.
I haven't in a very long time.
I keep, like, when it was bank, I held on to my BP points thinking there's going to be something I need.
Right.
And there never was. And now I'm holding on to LPs like there's going to be something I need.
If raids start back up, maybe eventually. Maybe.
Hey,
Maybe.
you need like 3,000 league points, 4 Lechonk tails, and like 2 something to make like protect. Okay, speaking of Game Freak, Regulation D is going to start.
Yeah, happy Pride.
I don't know, it's so funny
Regulation
to say.
D is here.
Fine. We've all been waiting for it. Regulation D starts on July 1st. This will be the world's format. Funny enough, there will be no scheduled tournaments from this time to Worlds. So, maybe Game Freak does hate us. Maybe.
We'll take it back. We thought we had a thing, and then they ripped it away with Regulation D.
I mean,
It's
I'm finding this super interesting because the VGC community really is not liking this, but something really similar is happening in GBL. They're changing up the moves, changing up the meta there right before the big tournament that's happening this weekend, and that was received really well. People were very excited about the flexibility and the adaptability that you're going to need to be able to change up your teams last minute for this competition, but that's not being taken the same way for this VGC.
yeah. I think Michael, what's his name? Michael
Starenka.
Starenka. I think he said during his interview, which we'll talk about in the later half of the show, that Niantic wanted to wait till seasons were over to change moves so people wouldn't be upset, but they got feedback that trainers were like, no, change them sooner. We don't want to wait till the end of a season.
Yeah.
So I think he actually said that, like, oh, well, we're going to probably change them a little more often just so, like, people don't feel discouraged and then have to wait till the end of
I think it
seasons.
might. I think it might still be seasonal. It was just that last season's update was awful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the feedback was that
I mean, that's on
players
par
wouldn't
for a
mind.
season of Rising Heroes
Yeah.
or whatever it was called.
Yep. But yeah, the VGC and GBL reacting completely differently to this pretty similar kind of news.
So the Regulation D allows for some legendary Pokemon. This is very confusing if you don't follow because okay, number one, just because a Pokemon is legendary doesn't mean it's good. We want to get that. That's the Hello Type Null, Hello Savali, both are very terrible competitively.
No, it'd be nice to them.
They have one gimmick and it's like explosion. Okay, so here are the new Pokemon that you can use. I'm not going to read the whole. I'm not going to say Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard. I'm just going to say Charizard. So you can use Charizard now, Alolan Raichu, Alolan Dugtrio, Berserker. Technically, Berserker has been in the game since day one. You could go to the language professor, I think, and get a Berserker from the school. But since Berserker is not allowed in the Berserker's not native to the Paldea Index, it wasn't allowed in competitions. So now it is. Alolan Meowth, Hisuian Arcanine, Galarian, this is a mouthful. Galarian Slowbro, and I'm just going to say Galarian Slow King, Alolan Muck, Hisuian Electrode, regular Tauros, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, and their Galarian forms are all now allowed. Now, those are not considered box legendaries. So, like Kyogre, Groudon, they're banned because they're more powerful because they're box legendaries. Typhlosion and Hisuian Typhlosion, regular Quagsire. I think that was another thing where, like,
Yep, you could trade for a Wooper.
yeah. Hisuian Quillfish and Overquill. Mesprit. Okay, speaking of bad legendaries, Mesprit, Uxian, Azelf. I think the only one that's like kind of okay is Azelf, but they're pretty bad. Hisuian Sneasel, and then Sneaseler, Heatran and Cresselia, Samurott and Hisuian Samurott, Hisuian Lilliganth, White Striped Basculin, and then Basculegion, Hisuian Zoroark, Hisuian Braviary, Let's talk about really good legendaries. Tornadus, Thundurus, Landorus, and their the Therian forms. Chestnut. Hey, Chestnut's bad. Don't worry, he's still bad. Delphox, Greninja. Carbink is finally legal. Bring all the Carbinks you want.
Yeah.
Hisuian Goodra, although I don't think maybe good for competitive. I haven't seen any. I've watched some trainers play the new format. I haven't seen any Goodras, but Hisuian Goodra, very good for raid battles. And I made a Hisuian Goodra build on YouTube, but very, very, very good for 5 and 6 star raids. Hisuian Avalugg, Decidueye is now legal. Rillaboom legal. Scorbunny Cinderace is legal. Cinderace and Rillaboom very good in Gen 8 competitive. We'll see if they end up being good here. Inteleon was never really that good, but you can use them. Cubfu, Urshifu, both Urshifu, very good. Regieleki and Regidrago are back. Drago has always been bad. Eleki has always been good.
And this time it has Terra Blast.
It's even better.
It's even better.
The horses are back, so Glastrier and Spectrier, they're both very good. They're even better when you put a rabbit on top of it, but the Shadow Rider form, or the Shadow Rider and Ice Rider, are not allowed currently because Calyrex they're technically Calyrex when the rabbit is on it, but they're still good separately. I'm not sure if they're good in this format, but I would assume yes. Weirdeer, Cleaver, Ursaluna, Basculegion, Sneasler. Okay, we already got all those are illegal. Gimmighoul is like
Yeah.
roaming
Gimmighoul. There's going to be an Eviolite roaming Gimmighoul strat that just surprises everybody this time around. Nobody's going to see it coming.
No one will see it. And then finally, Enamorus is legal, and only the turtle one is the turtle one is what you want. So that's a lot of new Pokemon. That's a lot of powerful Pokemon. I think I said on the show I thought Regulation D was just going to be like Hisuian, which would shake up the meta. I mean, like Arcanine, Sneasler, Ursaluna, probably particularly. Like that's what at least like 15 Pokemon that would probably shake up the meta a little bit. This is just like 40 Pokemon and like some of the most powerful Pokemon we've seen.
This is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and bringing back in some of the Pokemon that have dominated the meta before is maybe what's getting people the most frustrated and does separate it out from what's happening in Go right now.
To be fair, there are some players that absolutely love this kind of meta because it's a little bit faster, and you have a lot more options. Like even the move Tailwind, like your best Tailwind before this was Murkrow and Talonflame, and that was kind of it. And now you have a bunch of legendaries that can hit that Tailwind button. What's really interesting is they nerfed Regieleki going into this. So Transistor would give you a 1.5 boost. And then I think it's Dragon's Maw, which is the same as Drago's ability, which is also 1.5 for Dragon moves, Transistor's electric moves. Transistor got nerfed to 1.3, but they left Dragon Maw the same because no one used Drago. I don't think that's going to change anything. Also, spoiler, Regieleki is still incredible. You could argue maybe even more incredible with the access to with Terra Blast. They nerfed Urshifu. Wicked Blow, instead of doing 80 base damage and always critting, it does 75 base damage and always critting. So
They're trying with a question mark at the end there. They're maybe trying.
Yeah, I mean, there's balance there.
Yeah, I mean, that's not surprising. Like in Gen 6, Talonflame was busted because of Gale Wings, and then they changed it to Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire.
Yeah, it made it worse.
It's still good, though.
Still good.
But more fair. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose like dropping it by 5 when you're looking at crits, it's a bigger drop than probably initial blush.
I can say I watched a dark Urshifu Wicked Blow a Cresselia, and the streamer was like, this should knock out, and then the Cresselia lived with like 10 HP, and then all of chat was like, well, they did nerf
it. They did say.
And it was like, oh, I think that nerf actually mattered specifically for Cresselia. Yeah. So it was really funny to see.
I mean, they know what they're doing. They giveth and they taketh away.
Yeah, I think the competitive scene might not be as upset if they moved this like 1 month earlier, because then Hartford, Milwaukee, and Portland, I think, would have all been in this format. And that would be like, oh, at least 3 tournaments we could watch for this format. Now we have, they pretty much have 45 days to figure out what's going into Worlds. And I don't know. You made it to Worlds. You probably know what you're doing. You're probably very familiar with competitive Pokemon. So it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's a smaller set of players that really have to figure this out. Smaller.
It's a different skill set is what I've been hearing. Kind of just that early format and adapting to trying to create your own team and be good at it before anybody really knows what's going on, before it's more set in stone, is a different skill set.
Yeah.
Than a more set in stone format.
It feels like they're going into Worlds with things being more volatile, which feels like it will make a more exciting Worlds, but not necessarily a great experience for the people that have to play in it, right? Like, 45 days feels like a lot, but there's a lot to cycle through. There's a lot of different battles that you have to do. There's a lot of variables that won't necessarily, like, it takes time for that stuff to bubble up. And so, I mean, I sort of understand the hesitancy of being frustrated. Like, this is so quick to the big deal, but I mean, it will make spectators be like, we don't have any idea what to expect, because the competitors probably don't have any idea really what to expect. And that's exciting. Also, it's frustrating because I would not want to be in that situation. Yeah,
I mean, it took... This is why I always like roll my eyes at the Smogon format, because like Smogon banned, they straight up banned Houndstone pretty shortly after Scarlet and Violet launched. Smogon being a single 1v1. They banned Houndstone because of the move Last Respects. There's only 2 Pokemon that get the move Last Respects. It's Houndstone and it's Basculegion, and Basculegion wasn't even legal. So they banned all of Houndstone, and within the like a week of the game coming out. And my thought process is, why don't you just ban the move? Like, why'd you have to ban the whole Pokemon? And then, now that Regieleki is legal, Regieleki got banned in Smogon within like 2 hours. They banned Regieleki. And it's frustrating because they're like, Smogon is looking for like this perfect balance meta. And if we just take the main series VGC and we look at Regulation C, the start of Regulation C was all of Palance, and Palance was a core which consisted of Palafin, Amoonguss, Arcanine, and Fluttermane. So it was those 4 Pokemon. If you had those 4 Pokemon, you were running a core called Palance, and it was very dominant. And now, if you looked at the last like 2 or 3 tournaments, you rarely see Palance. And the reason you don't see it is because it took 2 months to figure out how to beat it. And people have figured out how to beat it, and they figured out better teams or better counters.
Right.
Palance is still really good. But people have figured out how to beat it. This was the same thing that happened in Scarlet and Violet with a team called Rinia. There was a Japanese player named Rinia, and they made a team that consisted of, it was Charizard, And gosh, I can't remember what was on the team. It was Charizard and a couple other Pokemon. And it took about a month and a half, and people figured out how to beat Rhynia. And we moved on, right? Like we built on we built on top of that. And so that's kind of like the nice thing about like a 3-month format is you see the evolution of teams and where they go. And that's why I get frustrated when I look at Smogon, because they're like, it's been 2 hours. No one can figure out Elekey. Just ban them. It's just like, I'm sure trainers are smart enough to figure it out, right? Like not every team has like, every team can be beatable. We just have to like figure out which Pokemon move around to make that happen. What do I know? Same thing happens in TCG though. Okay, let's speaking of issues and speaking of competitive stuff, this will be our last article before break. We talked on the show, what was that, like 2 weeks ago, 2 podcasts ago, about how a bunch of Korean and Japanese players qualified for an event, and then something went wrong, and then they pulled the qualification. And then I was like, no one reported on this. Why? Comicbook.com. I know you listen to this podcast. Why didn't you report on this? Maybe you did. I didn't see the tweet. But like, it was weird that no one reported on it, because like esports and Pokemon to me are like 2 very clickable things. And especially when 2 people who have won world tournaments, one being Sejin Park of Korea, that was the Pachirisu guy. And everyone instantly knows who that is now that I said it was the Pachirisu guy. And then the other one being Ray Rizzo. They both qualified, and then they both qualified to go to Worlds, and then they both got those ripped away from them because of issues.
Yep.
One of the issues being you would play the same person.
Right. over and over and over and over again.
So we got news that 4 Korean players who were guaranteed to go to Worlds still had to play each other. And so in order to point out to the Pokémon Company that this whole Scarlet and Violet format has been terrible to Korean and Japanese players, since they were all guaranteed to go to Worlds anyways, they all agreed to bring 6 Pokemon with the move Metronome to finish their tournament. That was like their way to protest. Is like, we all qualified anyways. You have done nothing to support us. You have taken away our qualifications. We have requalified. You've taken them away. We've requalified. And then all 4 of those trainers got banned, and they are no longer going to Worlds because Pokemon said, we didn't like that you brought 6 Pokemon with Metronome. So I have it here. Hello, this is we'll read through it. It's pretty short, but it pretty much explains everything better than I can explain it. Hello, this is Nash. I've been asked a lot what's happening in Korea and how we ended up locking in Metronome for the national finals, only to be disqualified for this. So I'm writing this down to explain. So if you've been catching up with all the issues around the Asian circuit, like other Asian regions, Korea has been suffering this year. Here are some of the major events that have happened in order. Number 1, before we go, technically number 0. Before we go in, a little background of the Korean VGC format. Before COVID, we used to have 3 different IRL events that would lead up to finals. Each gave out CP. The circuit points are exclusive to Korea and have been an independent circuit as well as Japan. Last IRL event was back in 2019, and the South Korean VGC community has not seen one since. They have only given us an online double elimination Trainers Cup each year, and that was it. So now number 1. Last year when Worlds was back, players were curious on how Pokemon Korea planned to give invites. No explanations were made. They proceeded to do the Trainers Cup, the online tour like before. After the tour, they suddenly announced that the top 4 of the Trainers Cup will be invited to Day 2 of Worlds. This was excluding juniors and seniors. The tour is only available for masters. That was, for the record, that's like the same as the US for the Players' Cup stuff. This year, again, they announced nothing until March. In March, they announced that our circuit will be here. So they announced another Trainers' Cup thing. Basically, they gave invites to Trainers' Cup for the top 50 Korean players of each global challenge, and then the top 150 players competed in a best-of-1 ladder. Top 4 gets day 2, top 16 gets day 1. People were very frustrated that deciding everything in just the 10 games of the ladder. Also, this format is vulnerable to sub-accounts and match manipulation. So this is what we said 2 weeks ago, that like if you were a Korean player and you had to sit there, you only had 10 matches, you won all 10 matches, you've qualified for Worlds, and then all of a sudden the Pokemon Company was like, actually, there was a bug. You got to do all 10 matches again. And that, the bug sucks, don't get me wrong, like playing the same people over and over, not great, but also winning 10 matches and then being told you have to do it over again, also really sucks.
Yes.
And then, just like Japan, Ray Rizzo experienced this as well. We had multiple issues. People were getting rematched after rematch and could not stop playing during the tour. Pokemon Korea decided that the tour was invalid and the top 16 from this tour would get unqualified. People who went on to the top 16 here demanded compensation, and Pokemon Korea gave them an invite to the next year Trainers' Cup. This is basically nothing, since reaching Trainer Cup was just getting top 1,600 in the global challenge. Nothing even close to top cutting. This was a devastating message, implying our format will remain the way for next year. 2 weeks later, we played Ladder Tour again until it was updated, which until the update happened. That was that emergency update we got. Okay, so Nash, Blue, oh gosh, I should know how to say this because I was in Korea for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, you are.
Probably Songyun? Yeah.
Songyun and Mia were the top 4 of the second ladder tour, which means we secured our invites to day 2. Day 2 is the better day of Worlds, by the way. But in order to do that, we had to show up at the Trainers' Cup final round, a streamed match. It's just a final round who decides who is number 1 and who is number 4. A couple nice prizes. We were locked into day 2, so not much at stake. The 4 of us decided to go into a metronome battle to protest all the issues within our community. No IRL events, constant problems in the tour, disregarding of a younger division. That's very nice of them to think of their younger players. Absurd compensation for the problems that were caused. But the real problem behind all of this was the disrespect towards our players. During this week, Pokemon Korea suddenly sends an email to Blue, disqualifying them without saying why. When he called to ask why, they refused to answer. They immediately gave his day 2 to Betago. Betago agreed with the 3 of us to do the metronome battle, so we proceeded. We've locked into our in-game online tour system beforehand. We did that yesterday, June 2nd. We were supposed to battle on the 4th. Today, on the 3rd, all 4 players were sent an email from the Pokemon Korea account informing us that all 4 of us were disqualified. Their reasoning was all the Pokemon locked in with one learned specific move. According to Pokemon Korea, this falls into a prohibited act saying that they say an act of harm to other participants, giving an offensive image, or other actions Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and its subsidiaries deem inappropriate. Pokemon Korea saw our teams didn't like it, therefore disqualified all 4 of us for playing Metronome. Woo!
Yeah, this is a mess.
So that's happening.
Yeah.
So to say that like Scarlet and Violet is a mess, sure. The game has bad frame rates. The game's a bit buggy. they have fixed some stuff. To be fair, in like the last month, my game has not crashed on me. But the tour stuff has not been any better. And I remember the first couple US VGC tournaments here in the States, and I was like, why are we still using all of Sword and Shield branding? Like, why are they showing Zacian and Zamazenta on the screen? We know that they have Quaxley, Fuecoco, Sprigatito images. Why are we just not replacing? Like, I don't know what's happening, but like, Japan has not been super solid with the Ray Rizzo stuff. Again, they had the same format as Korea for some stuff. This Korea mess we've been following for a little bit. It's not getting any better. Pokemon Go has had its own disaster of people qualifying and stuff. So the whole like competitive circuit has not been smooth at all, which is, if anything, I would just say it's a bummer because we had 3 years of COVID. People really wanted to compete. They really wanted to get in. The Pokemon Company has done a pretty good job at lowering the barrier of entry to get in to participate.
In some ways. Raising the literal price makes it a little harder.
Yeah, that's true. Prizes are better, I guess.
Well,
As someone who would have competed if it didn't cost $70 to compete.
I mean, it's a lot of money these days.
I mean, I applaud these players for doing what they did.
Oh, yeah. That's a really cool way to protest.
They weren't hurting anyone. They didn't hack in these Pokemon. Well, I don't know. Maybe they did PKX, but like legally, all these Pokemon can learn Metronome, right? It wasn't like they did pick 6 Pokemon that all could legally learn Metronome. They were all guaranteed to go to Worlds, so it is a little insulting to like go through with this tournament when to the 4 players like that's like the prizes don't matter at that point. Like they would rather have a better tournament scene than to get like 2 boxes of whatever the last set was called. I can't remember.
This is one of those things where I feel like the Pokemon Company rode on a wave of really great, like your core game was really good, your side games were really good, and then when Scarlet Violet hit, like the cracks that were there just got wider, and they are mostly unprepared on how to actually attempt to make this better, because I feel like they have like half a vision of what they want these tours to look like and how they want this to go, but they haven't solidified it enough to make really difficult choices. They seem to be doing that thing like we know what the vibe is, so let's make decisions sort of based around the vibe, which is like never a good way to sort of start approaching these things. And this story, it fits in with a decision of a corporation that just does not have a solid vision of how they want to move forward, how they're going to fix the actual issues, and don't have a way of actually dealing with their customer base, right? Like they just don't have an idea of what they want to do or how to deal with it. And I'm going to say that kind of universally across almost every Pokemon product that is happening right now. Go doesn't have a good idea how to deal with it. Unite doesn't have a good idea how to deal with it, really.
Hey, Niantic knows for sure they want you outside and walking.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So, like, overall, I think they are in a very unusual place where you feel like it sort of feels like trying to explain to to my parents, your grandparents, like these are what memes are, right? Like, they've heard of it, they don't understand the importance of it, and they don't see the value of it, and they don't understand why people younger than them do. And I feel like that is where we're at with the Pokemon Company right now. Like, they understand it's important, but they don't understand why and are not capable of making decisions to fix the actual problems.
I feel like this is also we've gotten so big across all things.
Yeah.
Cards, games,
Yep.
TV, spinoffs. We don't have the proper people in place. On top of, we still have probably a small amount of people in Japan that make the decisions for everyone. We know that this is for sure true because the Pokemon Company International still has to get approval from the Pokemon Company for things. We've talked about how that's affected things before. And because Pokemon is so big now, it feels like the people up top, there's not enough people there to be making decisions quickly enough or adequately enough for this entire company.
Having been in large corporations, there's plenty of people at the top. The issue is they're unwilling to give up control, right? Like, you don't need 50 people to approve anything. You need 10 to improve the most important things, and you need to trust that the people below you are capable of making good decisions that actually support your company. And it is 100% a trust issue, and the fact that they at the top don't understand why these things are important. Like, you only ever need one person to say yes. That's all you ever need. And having 100 different people tends to mire it down in, well, you didn't ask the right group. That is a complicated structure that needs to go away. You need to be able to empower the people who are actually running those areas to make decisions without you. And they just don't allow that to happen. They just have zero faith in their corporate structure and the people that work for them to make the best decisions possible, because you can see that in their mind, they're trying to avoid scandal, but by having such a delayed process, they are creating scandal. Like, they don't understand that if you loosen up and trust your employees who are in charge of these things, you'll get different scandals, but you're getting scandals no matter what. And you can respond to them faster if you trust your lower employees.
It's just frustrating because I feel like every time we hear, like obviously the three of us love Pokemon and we report on Pokemon news, but like when we report about the competitive side of things, we don't report on like, well, these are the best teams that because there are other websites that do that kind of stuff. But also, like, that stuff doesn't ever make it into mainstream, right? Like, you're not seeing, like, a mainstream website report that, like this dolphin Pokemon is dominating the VG. Like, you don't see that.
You see all it with
who's at number 5.
Just need another Pachirisu.
But I feel like anytime Pokemon VGC competitive stuff makes mainstream news, it's always something terrible. And then people on the outside look at and they'll be like, yep, look at those little kids playing their little Pokemons. Like, of course it's going to be run poorly. And it's like, this is not what we want. We like, because there is such like a skill and there's so many variations of Pokemon. And like, sometimes you look at a Pokemon team and you're like, oh, the top 4 teams all run this dolphin. And it's like, yeah, but their teams are so different behind the dolphin itself, and like people play in a certain play style, and it's like really cool once you get into competitive Pokemon of how like deep and how much skill is there and how complicated of a game it is. And it just sucks that every time VGC is brought up as like an esport or like a mainstream thing or like on the same like pedestal of like Valorant or whatever current competitive game is popular, we're just like a joke to people. It's just like everyone just points at us and laughs and goes like, bunch of kids playing this video game. It's just like can't help but like blame the Pokemon Company of not treating this as serious as they should be. Like on the surface, it looks like they're treating it serious, but as we dive deeper into these problems, it's like they don't have a good structure for these events and for these tournaments, and it's just who wants to pay $90 to be like, I don't know, this thing's like barely held together. It's why I left TCG.
Yeah.
I like people always find the podcast, like new people always come in, and like even last week on my Twitch stream, somebody's like, Steve, you played the TCG? Because I was opening booster packs. Oh, by the way, when this podcast goes up, TCG is dead. They just closed it, by the way. So that's breaking news.
Breaking news. They killed it.
TCG is dead. So I had to panic open like 500 packs because they would have been not transferred to TCGL. So I'm opening packs. Somebody's like, Steve, you used to play competitive TCG? And I was like, for 3 years. Every single weekend, I would load up a car with my friends and we would drive 2 to 4 hours to some sort of city in the middle of nowhere hosting a tournament. And we would spend all day, get no lunch breaks, have the judges make the wildest calls because, like, who is going to judge the judge? We're in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, in the middle of nowhere, and this judge is making the wildest. Like, I guess this is a DQ, even though like it shouldn't be a DQ. Like, this is a 2 prize penalty. This should be a DQ. Why is this a 2 prize penalty? It was just like the tournament structure, not like anyone in particular, but the tournament structure is not respecting my time. Players are bullying judges. That sucks. Like, we're getting gaslight in matches and no one's doing anything about it. And like, I'm not even treated like a human being of like, can I get a 15-minute lunch break? Nope. Keep playing. Like, who wants to do that?
Yeah. It's, again, they want something that they don't want to invest in because it's one of those things where you sort of think like, oh, they feel like that it's a nice to have. This is a nice thing to do for our groups, but
it's something that
not necessary
they feel
for our
they
company.
should do.
Right.
They feel like they should be building this out, that they feel like it's important to have this be a part of the Pokemon brand, but it's not structurally sound.
And they just don't have a view. They don't have a vision. Like, you can look at it and go, you don't have training for your judges. You don't have consistency. You don't even update your marketing. You don't have these, the people who ultimately end up making these decisions don't necessarily understand the decisions that you're making because you're not investing anything into it. And it is hard to say what they want to do. Like, do they just want it to die? Do they just no longer think it is, especially since COVID happened, that they just don't feel like this is a viable thing for them anymore?
There's no way they just want that to...
Yeah, when you go to them in person, it's a bigger and bigger thing every year.
Yeah, but the thing is like, that's the 2 messages that you have. You want it big, but you also feel like you want it to not exist anymore because you don't invest in it. So they are stuck in this weird parallel of, yeah, this is really important, but not important enough for us to pay attention to it in a meaningful way.
I don't know how like Street Fighter or Tekken or League of Legends or Valorant, I don't know how their tournament structures are run on the back end. I'm not in those scenes, but maybe if I was more deep in those scenes, we would hear like similar issues of...
I'm surface level deep in Magic, and from what I can tell, they are run immensely better than this. Like, they are pretty strict about things. They have solid rotations. They have exact formats. They have, the exact same judges, and I will say from my limited experience, I have rarely heard the same quality of issues on the Magic tournament that I hear in the Pokemon TCG tournament.
But if like, I feel like this season is already the ship has already sailed, right? We're gearing up for Worlds.
It's
Couple
gone.
months.
But like, oh man, I can't even stop thinking about like tuning into the first stream tournament, because I think I love having those on the weekend. Like I'm cleaning the house, like putting furniture together that I should have put together a year ago, and then I have it on the background, and then like something exciting happens and you look and there's plenty of downtime in between matches, which is both a good and bad thing. But like, I was just so blown away that like when that first two tournaments, but they haven't changed it, by the way. And like, I'm seeing everything like Zashi and Zamazenta, like Stonejourner, and I'm like, they didn't upgrade the title cards or anything. They're still using the same stuff. Like, this is a brand new game. Like, how is this not a priority? And then literally like a month later, Wolfie Glick did his invitational with a bunch of content creators. Wolfie Glick, a very good player. And I was like, oh, let's tune into this. And the production quality of that thing was mind-blowing. It was so good. And I was like, this guy is just not just a YouTuber. Like, Wolfie Glick is very great. Like, makes good YouTube content, very good player. But I was like, this is insulting. Like, the Pokemon Company is a $1 billion company that should be at, like, you just have to... I know it's not as easy as just do this. But, like, when you're starting a brand new game for a brand new season, something that's going to go for pretty much a full year from October to August, there wasn't any pre-planning of, like, what is our tournament structure visually going to look like on all of these Twitch streams that we have planned, which is what, 20 plus?
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it's almost every weekend there's a tournament somewhere. And like, we don't have anyone to sit there and just, okay, let's replace the Zacian with Sprigatito. Let's replace the Zamazenta with Fuecoco. Like, let's like make the colors purple and orange, because that's what Scarlet and Violet is, not red and blue, which was Sword and Shield. Like, no one thought of that.
This is what makes me laugh, is this is exactly the same thing that happened. So I went out to LA and did D&D live in 2019. So I did that. All of us sort of community streamer people, actual people, went out there, ran side streams for them live, essentially for free. I did not get paid. I had to pay my entire way out there. Fine, whatever. 2020, everybody's gearing up again, and they're like, community people, where none of you can come. It's online only because of COVID. None of you are invited, and we're going to just do all celebrities. It was shocking at how bad it was. Cameras falling over. They were doing like a cooking show, and the camera was never focused on the food. I mean, streamers in the community were sitting there like, everybody who watched it, I was talking to friends like, we all know how to fix all of this. And they just said, oh, we'll just do it in-house because it looks so easy. It's the same sort of issue. It's like, get these people to do it. But again, nobody wants to work for free, and you are going to have to pay these people something. And it's obvious when you don't want to spend the money. It's obvious because the quality suffers so greatly from people who do it in their spare time for free because they love it. And then you see them do it professionally, and you're like, this is laughable how bad it is. And these are famous people who are used to acting, who should know how to run cameras. And it is shocking because they just didn't take the time or effort. We're like, well, we just do whatever. And that's the same feeling I get a lot of times when I see things. It's like somebody's and they're like, well, we don't have time. We don't want to pay so just do whatever. Yeah. And again, that is the problem of just deciding it's not important enough to invest in.
Big events are hard and easily underestimated.
Oh, yeah.
Even I helped with my mom's wedding a year ago, and that was hard. Just making sure everything was set up, making sure things didn't fall through the cracks. It's so easy for something small, for something that you're not looking at as you're setting up, to fall through the cracks.
I had, for my wedding, my friend Anne agreed thankfully, she's one of my best friends, but she is a stage manager as a professional, or she was. She's gotten out of it since then. Nothing on top of literally everything. I mean, so if you watch the halftime show for the Super Bowl of 1993 that was in Minnesota, she was a stage manager for that. It's hilarious. It was the last one. It's so bad. It's called Winter Magic. Watch it. It's one of the worst things you'll ever have watched. But like she, like as a professional, knew all the things that I didn't know for sure. Like I have some ideas of how it's supposed to work. Nah, she was like, nope, we're going to do this, I'm going to be standing by the DJ for this. Write up your sound cues, write up the timing, what words they should come after, get this done. And then I'm going to meet with these people. We're going to talk about when the tables need to be moved. Like that sort of organizational brain is so important. And when they just decide not to invest in that person, you're like, well, this is why it's a mess, because nobody knows what should be happening and what is necessary to happen. Like they've existed for years. They're called stage managers and production managers, but they cost money.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back to like now me thinking about like the Twitch chat and how like it is so hard to watch some of these tournaments because I don't know for sure, but I am assuming that the Pokemod 4, Pokemod 7 or whatever in Twitch chat are just volunteers or just people that work at the Pokemon Company that were told, hey, you need to watch the Twitch chat this weekend. But in reality, none of them managing Twitch chat knows how to manage a Twitch chat.
Yeah.
And it is infuriating. Like there was a trans player who won her match, and Twitch chat is like, is it he, she, her? Oh, like the standard like trans stuff that just
all the
sucks.
misgendering, all of the horribleness.
And nothing was moderated. Yeah. Not a single thing was moderated for that trans player, and it absolutely sucked. And that's like one issue. And I've talked about this before. There was an issue where like the stream went out and somebody made like a bomb threat, and they were like, "Oh, the stream went out because they found a bomb in the convention center." And that person that person got a 10-minute ban. And they came back in 10 minutes and started saying more terrible jokes. Like, no, this is not how we moderate Twitch chats.
Right.
Like, there was an instance where everyone was spamming an emote. It wasn't even like an offensive emote. It was just like a silly emote. So, of course, the moderator started timing out the people doing the emote. So more people started doing the emote. And it's like, no, just let Twitch chat run it. Like, it's just a silly emote that they were banning for they get bored very easy. I promise you, if you would have left it, they would have been bored in 5 minutes and gone back to the thing. But because you were timing out people using the emote, more people wanted to use the emote. This is like basic Twitch 101. Like hire people, pay them $20 an hour to sit there for your 8-hour stream who actually know how Twitch chat works, and have your like 3 Twitch chat people on the same page. Have them in their own group chat being like, hey, what are we moderating? So we're all moderating the same. If somebody makes a offensive trans joke, do not ban them for 10 minutes. Ban them for the entire weekend, for 48 hours. Like, I get that the Pokemon Company doesn't want to like permanently ban people, but like, if you want to give them second chances, which I don't think you should, but if you do want to give them second chances, at least ban them for that specific tournament, 48 hours, and see if they get better the next tournament. Like, right? Like, surprise, because I know these people do not know how to use Twitch chat. You can actually click their name and see why they were banned and who banned them, and you could leave a note. Like, hey, why was this guy timed out for 10 minutes? Oh, he left a bomb. He made a bomb threat joke. There's nothing funny about that. Like, why was this 10 minutes and not permanent? Why, like, it makes. Again, it goes back to like this whole Korea thing. Your tournament structure is kind of a joke, and it's why people point at us and like laugh at us, because like they're like, these are not easy issues to solve, by the way. Like I get it, but like if you want a serious professional like tournament structure, you need to invest in it. You need to invest in like the right people. You need to pay people. You need to like stop relying on volunteers or just like, hey, moderate Twitch chat. You don't use Twitch on a daily basis? That's okay. You'll figure it out. No, you won't.
No, you won't.
You won't figure it out. Like even Twitch chat and YouTube chat are such different vibes. I don't know. It's really hard to explain, but like they're very different. I don't know. We can't keep talking about this. It's making me mad. I'm thinking about everything.
There's a lot wrong. There's a lot that needs to be fixed. But what's new?
It is moderation problems are not limited to just the Pokemon Company. It is a constant issue across all aspects of almost every business that you do not understand. You don't have an idea of what you want to be as a company, and so you do not know how to moderate correctly, and you are unwilling to pay for the people that can help you do that, and it's frustrating.
What's not frustrating is our break.
Yeah,
it's refreshing. And when we come back, we got some Pokemon Go stuff to talk about, so we will be right back. And we are back from our break. We got a couple of Pokemon Go things to go over. They launched a new season. I guess before we get to the new season, I want to talk about the good thing that happened, which was the... well, the new season, I think, is all relatively exciting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good thing.
We got to dunk on Niantic eventually. But before we dunk on Niantic, the Searching for Gold Research Day was probably the best event they've done. Gosh, in since the fairy stuff, I think, since the Dedenne event. It might even be better than that.
Honestly, yeah, I preferred the fairy and dragon event personally, but it was a really good event. I know that with the last research day, they kind of went in a different direction and had weirder, harder to accomplish tasks for that day, and they brought it back for this research day so you could actually accomplish the tasks quickly. You could actually be encountering these Pokemon that you're looking for more quickly, and as a result, people got more shinies.
Yeah, so if they, I will say they did a pretty bad job at advertising this event.
It was the first thing in the new season.
Yeah. So I do feel bad if you missed this event because it was pretty good.
This morning I got a notification on my phone that the golden event happened yesterday.
So this was on Saturday, June 3rd. It was from 2 to 5. The featured Pokemon were Caterpie, Magikarp, Nosepass, Sableye, Barboach. If you're like, why are none of those Pokemon don't make sense? All their shinies are gold. So there you go. Now it does make sense. Pokestops may turn gold without a golden lure, but roaming Gimmighoul won't appear at those golden Pokestops unless somebody uses a golden lure. And then Pokemon in the wild would be Weedle, Bellsprout, Poochyena, Weasel, Timepole, Shelmet, Stuffle. Some trainers might find a Lickitung or an Azumarill. I never saw an Azumarill, but I saw plenty of Lickitung. All of those Pokemon can be gold, except for whatever...
The Azumarill.
Azumarill is listed as not being shiny, so...
I mean shiny is gold.
It can be, not here.
But you can't catch it as a shiny.
Yes. And then they put out a $1 ticket, which, full disclosure, I paid for my $1 ticket. I gave Niantic my $1. Sometimes Niantic gives me free tickets, so I just want to fully disclose that. I did pay for it myself.
I did not, and I still loved the event. I feel like the ticket was just sort of an add-on.
The ticket was really cool. So did you know how the ticket worked?
Yep, if you were looking for one specific Pokemon.
Yeah, so for those that didn't, it was I think there was 2 parts to the ticket. The first part was just do 5 tasks. And then each of those tasks one gave you a Caterpie, one gave you a Magikarp, Nosepass, Sableye, Barboach. And then once you did those 5, and you got those 5 encounters, the second part would ask which one you cared about the most. So, like, for me, I didn't have any shiny Nosepass. I have 7 million shiny Magikarp. I have, like, 3 shiny Caterpie. I have, like, 6 shiny Sableye, 2 shiny Barboach. No one ever needs more than 2 shiny Barboach. But I was like, I got no Nosepass. So I clicked Nosepass. So then it gave you 10 more tasks. And those were all they would all be that Pokemon. So you have 10 chances of getting 10 more Nosepass encounters from me. And I ended up getting 2 shiny Nosepass from the 10. So that was
nice.
Cool. And yeah, so there was boosted shiny odds. I don't know what they were. Niantic will never tell us. They felt like 1 in 20-ish, maybe 1 in 40-ish. They felt very good.
Yes, they definitely felt like great shiny odds. One of the first research tasks I finished was not only a shiny Magikarp, but a huge shiny Magikarp, and that was a very exciting beginning to the event.
Biggie.
Dang. Yeah, I actually only played the event for an hour because it was very hot. So Niantic, we're docking points off. How dare you turn up the temperature here on your event day? I played for like an hour 15, and I loved it. I got like 200, 300 Gimme Ghoul coins because other people were putting down golden lures. There were default golden
good.
lures.
The golden Pokestops part was the part that seemed a little bit lacking, that I felt there could have been more around, and maybe you had more because people were putting lures down. I don't think anyone put a lure down in the area that I'm in. I came across maybe 2 golden Pokestops, and I played 2 out of the 3 hours and watched a whole bunch.
People aren't made out of money. Those golden lures cost a ton.
And by that, Greg means they cost nothing.
No,
if you have the game.
They're incredibly expensive to manufacture in game.
If Niantic would put a price on them, I'm sure they would be expensive. Hey, I put down a magnetic lure. I wanted to evolve a Nosepass, so maybe other people evolved their Nosepasses. It was just a really good event. Like I do think, I mean, cranking up the golden lures a bit would help, but at least in the area I played with, I think because there were golden lures, it inspired people to be like, oh yeah, I have one, I should put it down. And then if people didn't have one, there were plenty of regular lures that were up too in my area. So it did really feel like people were out like a community day. And I thought the Pokemon selection was good. People really like Sableye. People like Butterfree. You know, I don't know how many people have Barboach or not. But, you know, for me, somebody who's playing every day, I didn't have a Nosepass. I tried to get a Nosepass when I was in Vegas. It didn't happen. The selection of, like, wild Pokemon, like Poochyena, Bellsprout, Weasel. Like, I thought the Pokemon selection were good. I thought that, like, the theme of the event of all of them being gold was good. The golden lures were good. Like, more of this. Like, this is good.
Yes, I mean, this is going back to an event that has historically been good. The research days are good. They changed it up a little bit by adding this cool colored-based theme, and they focused a lot on Pokemon that were kind of rare shinies in the past. So yes, this was great.
This event was better than all of Rising Heroes combined.
It was, though. Seriously.
But Rising Heroes had heroes that rose.
Rising Heroes, you got one Elekid wearing a bracelet that you couldn't see.
You couldn't see it. I had to change the way I am naming my naming scheme for my shinies just because you can't see that costumed Pokemon at all.
Yeah, and I think the dollar was worth it to people who were okay spending $1, and I think that if you didn't spend the $1, you still got a good event. It wasn't like one of those things where like, oh, the $1 people got better shiny odds, or the like. It wasn't that. It was, you know, you got a couple more encounters, and if you were really focused on, you know, trying to get that Nosepass, like I got a Nosepass outside of spending the $1. I think I ended up with like 3 of them. So
the additional $1 was kind of a helpful tool.
Event.
But yeah, it didn't feel necessary. It felt like a fun thing you could do if you were looking for a specific Pokemon. Yeah. And that felt perfect.
I think the only thing they could have maybe done better is like advertise this a little bit better, but I guess maybe that's a double-edged sword, whether like it hyped it up too much. Because I had no expectations going in. Maybe that's why I liked it so much, because my expectations were on the floor, and then I did this event.
The research days are good. The research days are usually some of the better events. It was just the last one that had some issues.
Yeah. But, like, this is a good example of, like, you've made your game fun, and you didn't rely on raids.
Yes, exactly.
And they need to stop having every single new feature, like Megas, Ultra Beasts, Shadow Pokemon. They all just rely on raids now. Well, Shadow Pokemon didn't used to rely on raids, but the last event they relied on raids.
I think they're very stuck in, and we'll talk about this with the interview, but I think they're very stuck in raids being the primary way to get people to go outside. And I think they might be having some trouble thinking farther outside of that box.
Yup.
If and when they ever do Z moves, because I think they will, if they also put that behind raids, I'm just...
There are so many other ways you could. Maybe not. I would need to think about that more.
Okay, let's talk about this season. The season of what's it called? Hidden Gems.
Yep. The season of Hidden Gems, the season where we all know which Pokemon is coming with Go Fest.
Yeah. Is there not a general blog post about Hidden Gems?
Nope, there is not. It is just
No.
an infographic on Twitter. They stopped doing the blog posts. There's a calendar where they accidentally leaked some of the future events that they didn't mean to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you leak it yourself, then you don't have to worry about random Discords leaking it.
Correct.
For you.
Yep.
That's the 5D chess. That's what that
This
is.
seems like a pretty good season.
Yeah, so we will have a festival beach week coming up, which will debut Sandygast and Palo Sand. That will be on Tuesday, June 6th through Monday, June 12th. So that's coming up this week. You'll be able to find Sandygast and Palo Sand. Palo Sand is just 50 Sandygast candy, so nothing wild or crazy there. You'd have to like go to a beach and like turn your phone upside down to like get a Palo Sand. A global challenge will take place. Trainers around the world will have to throw 300 million nice throws to unlock bonuses for everyone. If we do that, you'll get increased candy for nice, great, and excellent. Increased chance for trainers above level 31 to get XL candy. Your wild encounters, because it is beach week, will be Tentacool, Shelder, Krabby, Alolan Executor. That makes sense. Horsey, Staryu, Marill, Wingull, Wailmer, Spheal, Finneon, Dwebble, Frillish, Clauncher, and some trainers might find Mantine or Poplio. It's Mantine because it's Mantike, like Tyke to Teen. And then hopefully in Gen 10 we'll get Mandalt. We're all very much awaiting the Mandalt debut. Research encounters will be Lapras wearing a scarf, not to be confused with the Lapras wearing the weird hair tie thing that you could only get one of.
It's not the hair clip. It's also not really a scarf.
It's definitely a ribbon. It's not who's working at Niantic? Do we not know the difference of a scarf and a ribbon? It's a bow tie,
It's
if
a
anything.
bow tie, if anything else. It's a bow tie.
So field research will give you Lapras, Frillish, Binacle, Clauncher, Sandygast. Certain field research will give you Mega Energy for Blastoise and Swampert. Spotlights for... Oh, wait, is Spotlight our multiple Pokemon?
It is. Yep, because it was within the Water Festival. It's a
So
special
your
spotlight hour.
Your special spotlight will be Krabby, Kabuto, Corphish, Clauncher, and Crabrawler. Rainy Lures will last four times, so 2 hours instead of 30 minutes. I don't know why they just don't say that. Time is universal. There will be a timed research for $5 for the low price. Okay, Greg, let me see if we can convince you to get this $5 research. Here we go. When you complete the research, you will earn a surfer pose on your avatar.
I'm out. I'm watching it in action, and it is terrible.
You don't like the Beach Boys? Swim and swim.
There is one band that I hate above all others, and that band is the Beach Boys.
Really?
I hate with a fiery passion everything that Beach Boys does. And this includes Christmas music. I make a lot of allowances for Christmas. Never for the Beach Boys. They are horrifying to me.
Well, on the plus side, Greg, you only get the pose, so I guess you're out. I mean, you get things to do, right? Like, that's the whole point of research is, like, do these 18 things, and at the end you get the pose.
I like paying somebody to give me a bunch of tasks I have to do. That is my ideal transaction. So I should just go and be like, hey, mortgage company, here's $20 because I have to clean my house.
I actually like having more things to do in Pokemon Go. I would consider the research if I liked the pose, because I generally do like poses. This one looks silly.
It's bad.
If it
Especially
actually
since
had
they're
a
not
surfboard,
on something, it
yeah.
looks like they're drunk. It looks like they are so wasted that they have no idea how to stand anymore.
I think you've convinced some people now to get it by saying that.
Probably.
Your 1-star raids will be Alolan Diglett, Hisuian Quillfish, Carvana, Feebas, Sandygast. 3-star raids will be Blastoise, which apparently can be shiny. Gyarados can be shiny. Maybe they fix this? Are they fixing this? Or Gen 1 Pokemon can be now shiny? No, because these are Megas.
Yeah, those can Mega.
So never mind. Lapras wearing a scarf, Alola Mola. Asia Pacific will be Uxie. Europe, Middle East, Africa, India, Mesprit. 5 stars in America and Greenland. Azelf. Mega raids are Swampert. Those are active right now.
Swolpert.
They have released a Sandygast hat, a diver outfit, and diver goggles in the store. They did update the avatar stuff. It is much better. The bar was on the floor, though. So
Do they have socks?
there are socks now. Yeah, I think they added socks like a year or two ago.
Yeah, there have been some. It's better. I am looking forward to seeing what they do with more avatar customization potentially in the future. We will see where it goes from here. I think that this update may be preparing for that.
We we can only hope. I've definitely given them that feedback time and time again about how important the avatar stuff is for people, myself included. They also announced the next Community Day, which is this upcoming weekend, which is Axew. No surprise here. Axew will be Saturday, June 10th from 2 to 5, which I thought, like, when the summer stuff happens, they start moving it earlier in the day because it's not as hot.
Nope.
I feel like it's the other way around. It's earlier in the day during the winter because it's not as dark.
Oh. Okay. I can't remember. If you don't know, Axew can now evolve into Haxorus. It'll get access to Breaking Swipe. Your bonuses are 3 times for catching, 2 times for catching XP, 2 times catching candy, more XL lure modules lasting 3 hours, incense lasting 3 hours, snapshot surprise. Wonder what it'll be.
Who knows? It could be anything at this point. Really, what Pokemon is going to show up on Axew Community Day when you take a snapshot? The possibilities are limitless. If by limitless we mean about 900 choices, but
one additional special trade. Isn't the season bonus 1 extra trade anyways?
Mm-hmm. Which is why they keep kind of clarifying 1 additional on 2. So this would be 3?
3.
Yeah.
So 3 is special trades. So all of this season for the next 3 months, you'll be able to do 2 special trades a day.
Are you certain about that? That's something I would want to double check.
I thought that was in the app right now. And then trades will be 50% less Stardust.
Okay.
Greg, we're not lucky friends right now, so.
I know that there is the extra candy and there's the extra XL candy, and that's what I've been focusing on because I'm not around enough people to special trade that much every day.
Yes. So current season hidden gems are seasonal Pokemon found in the wild, seasonal Pokemon hatching from eggs, 1 extra special trade. So that's for the next 88 days. Extra candy when trading, guaranteed XL candy when trading. So
why
those
is
are all
it
the
on
seasons.
this infographic? I'm looking at this infographic and it's got none of that.
Oh, no one said Niantic was good at infographics. They're getting better.
They are getting better, for sure.
The other thing to note is that a seasonal bonus for the last couple seasons were increased raid damage when remoting in. They have removed that, and now when you remote in, Your damage is normal. It is no longer a bonus. It is permanent.
That's not quite what happened, I think. They did remove the bonus being... So it was increased from what it was going to end up being. Their plan was to have your damage as you were remoting in be lower than if you were in person. And they have scrapped that plan, basically.
Yes. So when you remote in, you will do normal damage, which has always been normal damage.
Yeah. It hasn't changed. It's just been kind of clarified that it's not going to change.
It was supposed to be less damage, and Niantic just decided after 14 million seasons to scrap that. So that's a small win in the grand scheme of remote raids, I suppose. And they'll still have the, like, if you missed community day and you do a raid at a gym, which would be Fracture, it'll make more Axews spawn and stuff. That I'm sure some people are taking advantage of that.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna tell you now, I'm gonna be late because this is also grad season, and my 2 nephews' grad party are that day.
how dare Niantic plan Axews?
They should. I put it on their calendar, Janine.
I'm gonna guess that Go Fest this year will feature Goomy, the next Pokemon in line, and I'm gonna guess that they're gonna turn Goomy shiny, and they're gonna put Goomy in 1-star raids, and people are going to run out and do as many Goomies as possible, and then they're gonna announce Goomy Community Day June of 2024, and then people are gonna complain that their Goomy is no longer rare or special. They've only done this for what, 3 years in a row now?
People are starting to get used to it.
Goomy.
Goomy is a good shiny, too.
Look, but for that
Goomy is
year,
good shiny.
you were the king.
That's true. When you put that you had a shiny Axew on your LinkedIn profile, you were getting all the job offers.
All of them. That is my current strategy. I list all of the shinies that I have.
But now that Axew will be out and worthless.
I took it off.
Yeah, you got to take it off. It's just insulting, really.
I still have, though, Google Certified Pokemon Master. That opens many, many doors.
So far, this season's off to a great start. Everything seems really good.
Not everything.
Okay, wait, what's
Sorry,
bad? What did I miss?
There's one thing. The raid day, I think the raid event for Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf is not a great idea following the remote raid changes, because those 3 Pokemon are still locked regionally.
Locked. Yeah.
And so because
you can't remote raid into an Uxie?
You can, but only 5 times, and they can be shiny this time. So that's maybe not
great.
Yeah. It's not pleasant.
Just give Niantic your money. Do it 5 times a day, every single day. Your sunk cost fallacy, you'll eventually get the shiny.
Just if I was running it, I wouldn't have included that, or I would have made them not locked regionally. I think that they're trying to make shinies more rare again, at least legendary
it's
shinies.
Too late.
Yep.
We're gonna put that in a hot hat. Make shinies rare again.
No.
Oh no.
No. I'm out. Quitting. I quit everything.
No. What color? We can't do red. Red's already taken.
Gold.
Yellow. Yeah, gold.
It has to be gold.
I'll get it up on the store ASAP.
And then what you do is you sell 2 versions. You make one with stars and one with squares, and then you convince one of the other group that one is more rare than the other.
I love this.
It's a whole marketing thing we got going now.
Hannah, well, you're coming on here with 200 IQ ideas. Like,
Look, the fewer morals we have, the more money we'll make.
Perfect. Hey, speaking of morals, let's talk about this Niantic interview. I
tried. I could not get through it. I tried, but I couldn't.
Michael, the game director, is that his official title?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So pretty much the dude in charge of most of Pokemon Go that isn't probably constantly wearing a suit. Those people would be above Michael.
I don't know if anyone in that area is going to be wearing a suit constantly, honestly. Probably jeans and a t-shirt's more their go-to.
No, you always have like the corporate structure of like the chill game director and then all the suits above, but then you have the CEO, aka John Hankey, that goes back to regular clothes, but you have this like middle area where it's like anyways.
Office dress code policy, like there need to be a lot more books written about how wild that whole thing is.
So Michael went down to Australia to participate in Mewtwo Raid Hour, Shadow Mewtwo Raid Hour, I should clarify, because Australia is the second region to get raids. New Zealand being the first, obviously. And then Michael also went down to meet up with ZoëTwoDots, who is a content creator in Pokemon Go, who I guess you could say has a slight advantage as a very big content creator in Australia to get these events first, to then post about the events before they roll out to America, which is good because then people who watch Americans that watch Zoe can be like, oh, this event is worth it or not worth it. Actually, honestly, because of Zoe's video being like, hey, this event was really good, that put the gold thing on my radar of like, oh, I should make time on Saturday to do this because Zoe said it was good and I trust Zoe's opinion. I think I have no inside information, I promise you. I also think that maybe Michael went down there to scout out an area for a potential Australian event.
He was only there for 48 hours.
That's true.
That's a lot of time.
But if they already had an event in mind, like a location, and I think Zoe's in a pretty big, is she not in Sydney?
Sydney, I think. Yeah.
It would either be in Sydney or it would be in, what's the other big, there's only 2 Australian cities it would possibly be in. Sydney and whatever the other one is. The one by Perth, but not Perth. I can't remember what that is right now. It's been 7 years. There is no way that Australia will continue not getting events, right? Like they have to eventually pull the trigger on like that oceanic area, right? Like we get a national, we get an NAI, not an NAIC, whatever the VGC structure is down there. Because EUIC is Europe, NAIC, I think is
it just AIC?
Yeah, maybe.
Is it OIC for Oceanic?
It is a little weird to be like, here's your whole business expense to go down here to play Pokemon. I mean, he's the director; he can do whatever he wants. Yeah. But,
I mean, and the interview,
the interview, testing out Shadow Mewtwo raids, getting to be part of the community, which does have value in itself. Like, for sure, any game director or any manager that wants to play in a new area. This was a thing too. Right when the pandemic lifted, Niantic was asking us as content creators to go down to areas where they were featuring. That's why I went down to a St. Louis community day, the one that got rained out. But because there were supposed to be Niantic employees there. And the whole point of that was Niantic employees and content creators playing with a community so they could get more feedback. That's where I met like the lady who made the Mega stuff. We talked about that on the show, and that was like really, really cool. That was, I did not know she was going to be there. I just went like, okay, like I'll go to St. Louis. Unfortunately, it rained out that weekend, but. So Zoe posted an 1.5-hour interview with Michael, and she got questions from Twitter. She had her own questions.
Lesson that I've picked up is that if you see a content creator who has a good relationship with Niantic posting the question, if you could ask Niantic one question, what would it be? There's going to be an interview, because this is the exact same question as last time.
Who did it last time? That was Nick, though, wasn't it?
Nick interviewed Kestrel.
Kestrel, yes. And they are the community manager, not game director, so they're in charge of overseeing.
At the time, Kestrel's title was head of community development for Pokemon Go. I
Yes.
went back and rewatched that kind of alongside this interview, kind of seeing the differences and where things have gone between the two.
Yeah, Kestrel's great. So I have all the questions here. I don't know if we need to go through all of them. We'll start with Hannah, though. What do you want to talk about first? What question/answer was?
There's so
Greg
much
couldn't
here.
make it through this interview.
And I made it through
Look,
it 2 times.
I have sat through so many town halls from corporate people who tell their version of the truth, and it is always very much an answer to not the question that's being asked. That like within the first few minutes, I'm like, I'm out. I cannot do another one of these because again, this is honest. I didn't want to spend an hour and a half of my time
I mean, that's fair.
screaming at the screen. I've done that for most of my career.
And I guess the way I'm going at it, as someone who is younger and much more naive with this sort of thing, is I'm picking this up as this is where we go from here. This is what they are set on. We need to work with this. We need to figure out where we go from here off of what they are saying now. And I think that the main thing I saw in the way people were reacting... so I was trying to look...
Before Hannah starts,
Yeah.
can I just say nothing in this interview surprised me. And if you are listening to this show and listening to what Greg, Will, Hannah, myself have been saying, all of the answers are exactly what we have been saying.
Yeah, they're exactly what we expect them to be.
Like there was a point. I'm sorry, Hannah. I didn't mean to
No,
cut
you're
you
good.
off. There was a point where Michael says, "We want our game to be different. There are so many games you can play on your couch. We want you to go outside," which is 100% the answer I expected Michael to give to differentiate his game, because that's what we've been saying on the show for like 7 years. That is, for whether or not you like it, that does make their game unique.
Right. The issue that I've had with that answer, and the issue that I have even here, is there is not a company that exists that doesn't want to go after every market they can get to, right? So when a company says we want to differentiate ourselves, what's being hidden under there is we're being told that we can't compete. Mm-hmm. So there's no way when everybody's on their phone and every app is fighting for your time sitting on your couch that Pokemon Go is also not going after that market if they were allowed to do so.
I mean, they're keeping PvP.
Right.
Just saying that. That's still kind of an on your couch thing.
So when they say we want to differentiate, what we can look at behind is the corporate speak of they didn't get the crossover they wanted for Let's Go Eevee. It didn't go the way they had planned. They are being informed to take their product in a different direction and focus on the thing that they can do, because there isn't a company in the world that doesn't want to go after every customer and every aspect they can get. And when that's infringing on somebody else in the same company, they're going to be told you need to stop. It is pulling funds away, or it's creating brand confusion, or whatever reason they were given. So when they say we want to differentiate, understand that they were told that they need to differentiate.
By the Pokemon Company.
By the Pokemon Company.
The Pokemon Company wants you to buy Scarlet and Violet and sit on your couch.
And sit on your couch and play those games.
And when you're outside, they want you to play another Pokemon game.
Right.
And Pokemon Go has been focused on going out and exploring the whole time. We can say that. We know that. And I think that this is nuanced. I don't think it's wrong for the core tenets of the game to be community, exploration, and exercise. But I do think that that's a hard thing to make equitable in a large-scale game where players can trade Pokemon and compete directly. That said, I do think it is possible for Niantic to make the game more equitable than it is right now. I also think, like I said earlier today, that they need to think more out of the box than just raids.
Yeah, I think the focus on the exploration and all of that was there sort of from the beginning, but I think it was this is what we want you to do. This is, we kind of want you to explore. And then really all of that was a nice to have and proved it was a nice to have during COVID. Well, we're still in COVID, but during the severe lockdowns. And honestly, the renewed focus on that, it's easy to say, and they can point to that saying, this is what we wanted from all along. But your product proves and has been proven that it's not vital to your game for those tenets to be followed, and that there is an external reason that you're heavily enforcing it now. And you're heavily enforcing it in a way that does hurt members of your community that found a lot of value in your game. And they still have never come up with a great answer to that.
Oh,
One
they
part.
They definitely answered.
And a lot of people didn't. Maybe you're thinking of a different place than I am, Steve. A lot of people, I think, didn't pick up on one sentence that was said in the interview where Michael said that they are currently working on additional solutions for players that were negatively impacted by the remote raid changes.
The amount of times a company says that with nothing to show for it, it is a way to get people to say, well, they're working on something. It's a way to shut up distractors. I'm sorry, when you don't have solid solutions and you say, we're working on it, they have been working on things now for 4 years and you have nothing to show for it. It is an empty corporate statement. That's like Steve saying we're working on Will getting back on the show.
Hey, he said Will has said that he'd be willing to come back on.
Yeah, but it is not he's not coming back full. Like, that is a way of saying if he shows up once, we fulfilled that promise. Like, it is a hollow statement, and it's frustrating when they say those things and don't actually point to anything.
So,
because
Greg, do you think this game should just be about raids then? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing you say, that the player base wants this game to just be raids, and I don't think this game is just raids.
I don't think that this game should just be raids, but I do think that they need to look at, like, making community day spawns rehappen again for people that can't go out into open spaces or into closed spaces or the way that they're run now. I do think they still need to resolve the fact that if you have a get up and go and explore, the fact that you use cell phone traffic to drive spawn rates. So if you're in the middle of nowhere, your spawns are next to nothing and you don't have a resolution for that. Like, it's much deeper than just rating. It is the fact that I am in the middle of a downtown area, which is still antithetical to how Pokemon is supposed to be, which is out in the wild. When I'm out in the wild, nothing shows up. And you've never resolved that. When I walk more, like, you do a 15-minute daily incense, which is cool for 15 minutes, but it still doesn't sort of resolve a lot of those issues around how your game supports all people equally. It's much farther than beyond a raid. It's the fact that if I don't have stops near me, I have to purchase Pokeballs. Like, there are taxes on people who don't have busy streets, busy cities, and busy places.
Michael talked about that, which was pretty much, we can't make a game for everyone.
Right.
Just kind of moved on.
That is a corporate answer. Like, that is the answer of them saying, we're not really going to fix these issues. That's what it is.
You just suggested some fixes. There are possible fixes. There are ways to make this game more equitable.
There are.
It's not impossible.
It's not, I'm saying that we can come up with it. I'm saying that I don't think they are invested in that. Like,
I think
we
that
can
there are people at Niantic, especially after having gone and re-listened to Kestrel's interview with Nick from last year or however long ago that was. I think there are people at Niantic who do really care.
Oh, there are. I guarantee it. There are in a million places. There are a ton of people that really care that are lower employees. It's getting the upper people who make the decisions, who do the budgets, to also care. And I don't know that necessarily exists. And again, we're talking about the fact that we're seeing it in a lot of other aspects of Pokemon. We have a very locked down communication style and approval style at the Pokemon Company. Like, we have a lock at the very top that I don't see breaking anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, like, this goes back to people being like, the Pokemon Company should take the game away from Niantic and give it to somebody else. Like, name one other company that's, like, doing nothing. That's like, we would love to work at, like. I mean, this is... If your video game company isn't actively making a game or doesn't have a deal, you're probably out of business.
I mean, this is the Dire Wolf TCG problem.
Yeah, they took it away from Dire Wolf, and they've made a worse product. And I wish I could...
They didn't give Dire Wolf the money they needed. They took it away to make something else. They aren't putting the money in there either. It's this... They are growing at a rate that I don't think they can keep on top of what they want on top of what their audience needs.
I think, as much as I hate saying this, Niantic is the right company right now to be managing and making Pokemon Go.
I mean, the whole game is built on their own internal system. You can't separate Pokemon Go and Niantic.
Right.
I mean, they did with the TCG. They rebuilt the whole thing from scratch from Dire Wolf Digital.
I don't know if it's the same thing. I feel like Niantic probably has some sort of thing trademarked with that type of game.
Yeah, maybe, but like, even, again, if somebody else was running it, does that mean like the game suddenly gets better? No, because I think the issues with Pokemon Go are at a more, like, if you live in like Appleton, Wisconsin, and you're like, community days suck here and there's not enough spawns. Well, yes, you're in Appleton, Wisconsin. That's your first problem. Number two is like, could you drive the 3 hours till Milwaukee and have a much better experience? 100%. If you drive an extra hour to Chicago, because Chicago's an hour south of Milwaukee, you will have an even better experience. And Milwaukee is the 26th biggest city in the United States. It's huge. Chicago is the 8th biggest city in the United States.
It's huge.
There's such a huge difference between Milwaukee and Chicago when it comes to like spawns and gyms and Pokestops and people playing, right? But like, Appleton, Wisconsin isn't even like that small of a city, and they have their own problems. And for even, I don't know how many people work at Niantic, even for 1,000 people to be working at Niantic to like try to individually improve every single town, village, city is just, literally an impossible task.
Yeah.
Without having community people go on and submit Pokestops and for what's that called, Wayfair, and then having other people approve the Pokestops. Like, I've done Wayfair. I know some people like doing the Wayfair thing. I worked on the Apple Map team when Apple Maps launched. Let me tell you a story. I was working at Apple when Apple Maps launched. It was so bad, and Apple pulled a bunch of people and was like, we need to make Apple Maps better. And so we have all of these community reports from people being like, this turn doesn't exist. This street is actually closed. This on-ramp should be like 3 streets down. And what Apple had us do was pull up Google Maps and compare the two to then update Apple Maps to make it better. And like, maybe that's why I don't like Wayfair, because I sat on that project for like 3 months and I was like, this is so, it's not fun. Like, and it was weird too, because like I started doing like Milwaukee and I was like, okay, I've done this, done here. Yep. Okay. Fix this. Oh, I've never been to this part of Milwaukee. I don't actually know where this on-ramp should be. I don't know if this is right or not. Like, this is like 10 minutes from my house, but I've never been down this road. and like I can't do anywhere else. Like I can't Wayfair Austin, Texas, because I don't actually know if that's there or not. Like I've never been there. So like it goes back to like I can Wayfair some of Minneapolis because I've been here for a year, but like I don't know if that like playground still exists down the street.
I feel like every
from
time
Greg's.
I did Wayfair, it was giving me places I'd never been before. And the whole
that was
context
mine.
you had were just the photos that the player took to submit the Pokestop and Google Maps or Google Earth view of the location, and you just kind of had to figure it out from there. I don't think I ever saw a place that I actually recognized.
Wayfair is
Oh, yeah.
supposed to give you places to you. Like, so if there's no places to you, then it starts branching more and more out. Anyways, that's like,
That's what they mentioned, where they can't control the whole game map. That's one of the hardest things with this game.
right.
They don't have
so that's
that
why
control.
that's why I'm saying like Niantic has slightly improved the spawns. They have said they increased the spawns, and they did during COVID, and they didn't revert those back. So there are more spawns in more places, and there are more Pokestops and more gyms in more places. But like, if this game lasts another 7 years, these are still going to be the same problems because the world is too big. Like you would literally need, you could add another 1,000 Niantic employees to like add more stuff in the world, but it goes back to the same problem as the Apple Maps thing. I've never been there. I don't know if that exists or not.
Yeah.
Like I have no clue in my own city that I've lived in for 20 some years if this street connects to this street, because I just never drive over there. I just don't have to go in that direction ever. So like this problem is like when I kind of like,
I don't want to say it's unsolvable.
Sure.
This interview, all the feedback, I've been looking at it a lot and thinking about it a lot, and have come up with some. Just my brain just keeps coming up with ideas that maybe this could be better, maybe this could be more equitable, maybe that they could take the density of the spawns and stops in your area and customize the Pokemon you see based off of that player by player. Maybe they could take your average kilometers walked and customize the amount of Pokemon you can run into player by player, and that would potentially make it more equitable, both for players who aren't able to move as much for one reason or another, or for players who are in a rural location. I think that there are potential solutions to some of these things.
but there was a point in the interview where they were talking about rural, like people in the middle of nowhere, right? And this is where like Michael answered it pretty honestly, where he was like, maybe they should play a different game, that we have other Pokemon games out there. Like if you live in the middle of nowhere and you don't have spawns and there's no gyms, why don't you get like Scarlet and Violet? Like he didn't say like go out and buy Scarlet and Violet, but like he pretty much insinuated we have other Pokemon products for people, and maybe this isn't the game for you. And I am sure a bunch of people got really mad at that answer, but like what else? Like Niantic can't just randomly teleport to your specific city, add 5 Pokestops, increase the Pokemon, and like, sure, that fixes your specific city or town or village, but like, there's just so many. Like it's just such a daunting problem to solve. And like, yes, we're 7 years into this game, and yes, it's gotten better in some aspects. Like, we're not even talking about the remote raids or like the raid system, but like as a game with Pokemon spawning and more stops and more gyms, it has gotten better. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't know, when I was in the middle of nowhere, past Duluth, wherever that is, and I was there for 5 days, and I opened my phone, and the nearest Pokestop was like 5 miles away. It was the only one I could see on the map, and there was literally no spawns in the cabin I was staying in. And I just thought to myself, that was the first time ever in like, that would have been like 2 years ago. So in 5 years of playing Pokemon Go, that was the first time I thought to myself, if this is genuinely where I lived, which is a lot of people,
Yep.
I would never play this game.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah.
I would maybe like log in if I went to a big city, or maybe if I was traveling on vacation, I would maybe log in. But like this, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, and it would have been the same case for Ingress, probably.
Yep.
For the first game that Niantic had based on this system.
Like it like even Pikmin. I don't open it. Like I open it maybe right before I go to bed to like send all my Pikmin out to do mushrooms, which is only 3 things. It takes less than 60 seconds to do that. But like Pikmin is a game that you cannot play at home. Like at least with Pokemon, I can do like some management. I can like level up. I can do GBL. I can maybe remote into a raid. But like Pikmin, you can't play at home at all. You literally have to walk and like move. And if that's not the game for you, that's not the game for you. Niantic can make it better, but like...
And there are ways that they can incorporate better gameplay for players who can't get out, that don't, or... Never mind, I'm getting all turned around. But there are ways things can improve that aren't raids. That's where I really want to go from here. They're so stuck on raids.
Even in that cabin, when I open it up and there's no spawns, and I was like, okay, I'll walk that 2 miles to the Pokestop. Like, even turning on the 15-minute incense, one, I no one's walking 2 miles in 15 minutes. And two, like, at that point, why am I even playing the game to get to the point of, like, turning on the incense? Like, there are other games. And, like, you can't even GBL at that point because you need to catch Pokemon to then power them up, to then sit at home to do GBL. Like I think we talked about this a month ago that I read on Reddit. Somebody was like, "Oh, I got the Jirachi quest, but like the quest is like spin one Pokestop 14 days in a row," and they're like, "My nearest Pokestop is 30 minutes away." And somebody was like, "I don't mean to be rude, but why are you playing this game then?" Which is like, I'm sorry for our audio listeners. I made like a shrugging, like I don't know what to do face, like, but yeah, like what? Why are you like? I know why you're playing the game because there is like Niantic did make this like addictive core thing when it actually works, but like, man, if you're 30 minutes away from a Pokestop, like I don't know how you're playing this game without like remoting raids and like throwing in money or just buying incense or buying Pokeballs, and you shouldn't be doing any of that because like. If you lived in a city, that stuff's all like there for you because you have the privilege of being in a big... Yeah.
They created something super appealing and super accessible to a lot of people because, like it or not, cell phones are a huge part of society, and they tapped a huge market that had never been tapped before. And I think the biggest frustration that everybody is feeling, and I'm sure Niantic is too, is they have to carve away the things that don't work to keep their game viable in their vision. And we are going to have to deal with the fact that ultimately, through whatever reasons and whatever you think, the decision has been made at a higher level that this is the game. And there's no amount of promising or we're working on it that is going to change that fundamental aspect of this is the game, and they have to carve away the things that are not worth it monetarily.
Near the end of the raid, Zoe did ask what the biggest regret was. Or did I say near the end of the raid? Near the end of the interview.
Yeah, interview. I was like, it
near
felt
the
like
end
a
of the
raid.
interview, Zoe did ask what the biggest regret that they had was, or that Michael had was, and it was how they introduced remote raids and how they didn't think about it at the beginning, and how he wished they had thought more about how they were introducing them at the beginning, and that makes sense.
I think he said he kind of wished they started with a limit.
Yeah, with a limit, maybe at a higher price, maybe where they are now, and whether anything would have been received differently. And
it's still shocking,
and it's
to me.
completely understandable that they started out kind of fumbling around because it was a weird time. There was a lot going on then, but.
It's still kind of shocking to me that not only did remote raids launch at the same price as a regular raid, but they kept it for so long. like I expected the price to go up, or the like damage reduction to kick in, or the reduce, like you do less damage because you're remoting in. I expected those to kick in like 6 months to a year, and they, what was it, 3+ years that both of those stayed at the reduced cost?
Price went up some.
Yeah. I mean, I do often feel that a lot of the decisions, and this isn't just Niantic, but this is across a lot of companies, is because you don't have enough diversity on your groups to run these past, that you don't have people who would actually think of the downstream effects, right? Like, you don't, if you had any person on there that would have thought about, like, it was the same thing with the changing of the distances, you know, that they went back on. Like, if you have people that who are versed in and think about the other aspects of who this is affecting, you can get ahead of those things. In so many ways, and across the board, corporations invite very specific groups to support their idea and don't tend to invite in the negative aspects, the people who would say this is a problem. And I say this as a person whose entire career was the person that they called in to meetings to say, this is the person that's going to point out all the problems because you're ignoring them. And I was often called in very late, and I would come in and be like, in the first 5 minutes, what are your answers for these 7 things that are real? And I have shut down in my career many projects because I was finally the person they brought in to say, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. These are the 5 things you have to solve, or the 4 things, or the 3 things you need to solve for this to be a success. And that just doesn't happen. And it often feels very clear in a lot of what's happening here and then across multiple games. They aren't bringing in people who are asking those tough questions. And part of the other problem is we're in a great layoff time. You are laying off the people who have the knowledge because they cost more money, right? Like people who have been there for a long time, who have those skills, who are invested in those community things, or you don't take care of them. You're driving off community managers who are getting death threats and you aren't taking care of them, and they leave and they take that knowledge and they take that experience and they take those answers with them.
Yeah, I mean, like, it comes down to money. Do you want to invest the money into a big city where you have more customers and those customers have a better experience playing the game, or do you want to invest that money in, you know, the middle of nowhere where you have less customers and they're already upset that their game is not a good experience?
I mean, do you want to invest in the money in me, or do you want to invest it in Steve and Hannah? I am not the person you're investing money in. Right? Like,
Greg's already bitter. Greg's already bitter and checked out of this game.
I don't enjoy the main loop of this game anymore. I don't find the daily incense stuff fun. I don't find raids interesting. There are so many things that I like, you know, I have luxury ball choices. I don't ever have that in this game. I don't have the way to move things over. There are a lot of just general life things that I prefer out of my game that I don't get in Go. I don't see them coming anytime soon. So I am not the person they should write. Like, I go out only to spend time with my friends. The game is secondary. I don't make time for this game anymore because I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. I've gone on and off of it over the last few years because the community aspect really was my favorite part. It brought me community in many, many different places, and I do still love the game, I think, largely because of that, because I still do have communities based around it. They're largely online right now, partially because I have physically moved 4 times in the last year, and I have not been able to maintain a solid Pokemon Go community through all of that. And I want this game to work for as many people want to play it, but it's not an easy question to answer.
Well, the community thing was another thing that was brought up, and Michael gave a very
that frustrated me. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's
I'm sure.
where I'm angry.
But, before we get off that, I also wanted to stress to people, why do you still your ableness is temporary.
Oh yeah, yes.
You can quickly find yourself into a customer that no longer fits their model through whatever happenstance. And that is a thing that they are not saying is we are making it for a very specific type of person. And that specific type of person is highly temporary for everybody. You will age, your body will change, your city, your state, the weather, you may move. Everything that they build for their game, that customer is temporary, and they aren't really facing that.
I don't disagree.
So
Anyways, the community thing that made... I'm excited for what made Hannah mad. I'm here for this.
Again, none of their answers surprised me. I live in the middle of nowhere. Well, just play a different game. Yep, that makes sense. That's kind of what I expected them to say. Why do you care about walking? Because it makes our game different. Yep, that makes sense. No surprises here. The community thing was, what about all the online communities that we've made? They're kind of gone now because of remote raid passes, and you want us to go back outside. And Michael's answer, I'm paraphrasing here, was, you can make online communities with any game that is online.
Yeah.
You can, but those games can't create a local community that you can go to.
Yeah.
Which there is truth to that. there is no lies detected. You can.
You can create local communities on online games. That is absolutely a thing that can happen. And also, another thing mentioned in this whole section of the interview was when Zoe asked if there were any upcoming things to support online communities, and the answer was not this year.
I thought he said Campfire.
That's not really an online community thing.
Well, there's a Slack chat Discord thing in Campfire, technically.
No, the answer was not this year.
He did bring up Campfire at one point. I thought it was the same question, but I thought he talked about Campfire for a little bit. But I mean, he used an example, which I think is a good example. He did an example where during a raid train, somebody stopped and was like, what are you guys doing? And he was like, oh, we're playing Pokemon Go. And they were like, oh, I thought that game was dead. And they were like, no, there's a bunch of us doing it. And then that inspired that person to re-download the game. And that's something you don't really get that's something that kind of is, I shouldn't say exclusive, but unique to a bunch of Pokemon people out there playing, to be oh, look at all these people in my city or in my town doing this thing that I could be a part of. Which I can kind of relate to that in the sense of when I got really into Netrunner, which is this asymmetrical card game. I was really excited to play, and then I realized no one in Milwaukee played Netrunner. And I was well, this sucks, because I just bought $200 worth of cards, and I can only play with 2 people in my household, and I want to play this game, but literally no one in Milwaukee plays Netrunner. Maybe people in Minneapolis played, but
there was a huge Netrunner community, but then they said they weren't doing the game anymore.
Yeah,
then I think that community died.
That game doesn't exist anymore. But so there is value in be oh, the people in my town are into this game, and I can now be into this game with them, and that doesn't exist if everyone is sitting at home doing remote raids and no one's going outside.
But raids don't have to be the only tool to get people to go outside.
Correct.
That's the problem.
that is
and he straight
problem.
up said that. He straight up said that raids were the main tool for getting people outside, or something very similar to that. And that frustrates me, because you can make events like the Golden event that we had yesterday, which was a great event and got Steve and I out playing outside a ton. I saw other people playing. this game. There were people out and playing. I mean, community days aren't based on raids. That's another type of event where you get people outside in community playing this game that isn't based on raids. And I do think there are opportunities that they could implement things where online friends from online communities could support one another in ways that get people to go outside more. So that both helps online communities and it helps people play the way that they want people to play. So one thing that kind of came to me because his feedback, when he said we're not focusing on online communities this year, that made me mad. And my brain started thinking about all the ways they could focus on online communities. And my brain went to O powers from Pokemon X and Y.
Mr.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember
Mr.
what.
O.
Mr. Bonding.
And if there were some sort of thing where I could walk 5 kilometers and then be able to send 3 minutes of better hatch distance to a friend, I would absolutely do that. I would absolutely do this cool thing to give my friend a small little boost.
But Hannah, you can spend $5 and you can send Greg the surfing pose. Think about that.
I
You gotta
can't
spend the
stand on
money and
solid
Greg will get
ground.
back in.
I'm completely wasted.
But with the O power thing, that would both get me out and walking or out and moving to get the O power, and it would get the person receiving the O power to go out and play the way they want them to play. There
Yeah, I
are
mean-
ways to do this
I mean,
that aren't
there are
raids.
There are other ways, like if you could send, a souped up incense to some, like you've done X amount of walking, whatever, and you can send that to somebody in a rural area that creates a bunch of spawns for them. Like there are ways of doing that, right? Like given people who play the game enough time, they'll come up with solutions. I just think we need to, in general, come to the understanding that they aren't necessarily really looking for those solutions, because we can come up with them.
Yeah, I mean, like the only thing I think I can like slightly relate to that is a new talking point for this conversation is when I had dinner with John Hankey. It wasn't really dinner with John Hankey. It was a bunch of us like sitting down and then John coming over with his beer and then like chatting with us for a couple minutes and then getting on his private yacht and then sailing away. There was no yacht. But when we were in Germany and he came over and he was asking us what we liked about the event. That was the Germany Go Fest. And he was asking us what we could improve or what he didn't like. And one of the things that I said that I really liked is I said I loved at the start of every hour, there was like a wave of Pokemon. So I think they started this in, not Madrid, the place in Spain that I can't think of right now, where they started it with like Corfish, where Corfish would spawn every hour. And then in the Germany Go Fest, it was Unknown. So at the start of every hour of Go Fest, like a bunch of Unknown spawned, and they would last, I think, for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then they would go away. And it was really cool. And they did this at the Seattle Go Fest, I think, too. And they probably did. The Japan Go Fest, I didn't go to that one. But when I brought that up, and a couple other people were like, "Oh yeah, I love that feature. Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, great job, Niantic. Clap, clap, clap." He said that like one of the things that he would like to see in the future was instead of those Pokemon just popping up for a couple minutes and then despawning, he said that like that didn't really like fit the vision of the game because like it's weird for Pokemon just to pop in and then pop out. And he said it would be really cool if one day they could get it where like Pokemon were migrating in real time in the game. So like you had like a herd of like Poochyena that like started in like Seattle and then started moving through North America, and that like, oh, like this the Poochyena are like in Wyoming right now, and like soon they'll be in Minneapolis, and then after that they'll be in Chicago because they're like moving in like real time, and that would feel like the game was like living, and that like it felt like a natural spawn occurrence in the game. And I thought that was like really cool, and it was like a really great vision, but also probably extremely complicated to like.
Also, like, okay, so they're in Seattle, and they showed up in Wyoming at 1 a.m.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
And where's the communication around that? The communication around
they're
that
already
seems
bad
hard.
at communication. Like, it's an interesting vision, except I always laugh because, like, we don't want Pokemon popping in. I'm like, have you ever played a base Pokemon game? They pop in
It's
for
different,
no
Greg.
reason.
One's on the couch and one is outside.
They pop in and disappear for no reason. That's the whole thing.
But I mean, that would also be cool in a main series game where, like, you're in the wild area of Paldea and, like, a bunch of Growlithe come running through, and then it's like, oh, they're only running through on Saturday morning or something like that. I mean, it would
they
be
did
cool.
that with outbreaks, right? Like, that's kind of what outbreaks were. And that's kind of what the roaming, like, they do it with the roaming legendaries. Like, the weather's weird over here. Go figure it out.
I'm looking to see if we missed any questions here. We talked about how they probably should have limited remote raid passes at the start.
One comment that really stood out to me was when he said that the way they are planning the rest of this year to go, he sees Pokemon Go at the end of this year as a very different game than it was at the start of this year. And that interests me. There seems to be a lot of expectation that the rest of this year is gonna be big and exciting. And I'm not sure how much I believe that. Zoe kind of said that things were neat from what they got to see, but I don't know. There is the expectation that the rest of this year is going to be big and exciting that they're setting up. And I'm kind of waiting to see if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, usually around the summer they announce, like, a new feature or something of the sort, right? Because, like, summer is their Christmas, or American summer is their Christmas for this game.
Also, the Southern Hemisphere's winter. So
Yep.
Yeah, but there are more people in the northern. You gotta go where the people are, Greg. You gotta go where the three biggest markets
of this
are.
game. Only go where the people are.
Yeah.
U.S., Japan, and Europe. Their three biggest markets are all their summer. What was it? There was two things I want to mention. Oh, location data. Where Zoe was like, "Hey, are you selling our location data?" Because your press release was like, everyone pointed out that you weren't selling individual data. And he was like, I'm so glad you asked this question. I'm really excited to answer it. He was like, nope, we don't sell your location data. We never have. He's like, the thing that we do share with advertisers is if they have a Pokestop, we can tell them exactly how many times that Pokestop has been spun. Which is, I'm pretty sure, something we said on the show that, like, I bet they use the Pokestop spins of, like, hey, this Mall of America gets 100,000 spins a week, and the Pokestop down in the middle of the ocean gets 2 spins a week.
I mean, again, go read their
Policy.
privacy policy, because they're real corporate-y about that.
Well, privacy policies are pretty standard.
Yeah. But, like,
I don't think we're going to know exactly.
That answer's pretty corporate-y because they aren't individual, but anonymous and aggregate data is certainly on the table.
I would not. Yeah, I would not be surprised if they take their 2 months of, what is it, Kung Fu tea,
Yeah,
right? And they're like, we turned 350 Kung Fu teas into Pokestops or gyms. This is how many spins they got. This is their increased revenue of traffic. Yep. This is how many people, including, here's Steve Sarumi's address. Here is his social security. Like, they probably take all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they package it up, and then they go to another company, and they're like, this is the success that Kung Fu Tea and Pokemon Go had. Would you like to turn your business into a Pokestop?
Yep.
And, like, you could argue, like, my personal opinion is that doesn't bother me. Like, sure, I spun the Kung Fu Tea. I gave them one activation. Like, they probably don't actually give them my address, right? Like, but they say, like, this customer signed up, right? Like, you had like this customer spin and then sign up. I don't mind that, because I do think, and Michael says this, is like they try to work with brands that would only add more Pokestops or attract more customers, which only makes the game better. Which, when they, for whatever reason, like all of the Boost Mobiles and Sprints were like Pokestops and gyms because they had a deal with Sprint and Boost Mobile.
Right.
And then when that deal ended, they just removed the gyms and the Pokestops. And it was so frustrating because I had a Boost Mobile down the street from me in Milwaukee. And it was like, I would do this loop at the end of the night. I would like leave my house, like walk to this bar, spin this Pokestop, walk down, spin these 2 Pokestops, one of them being Boost Mobile, turn around, and like those Pokestops just disappeared when that deal ended. So like he does say that again. He says like when we sign these deals, it does make the game better because we can add all these new activations that we weren't paying attention to before. So that's good. But I'm assuming that's what they're doing with our data is like packaging it up and saying like this, like, here you go, Caribou Coffee. We did such a good job with Starbucks.
Right.
He
Or,
did
you know,
also
they can like track. Again, it's one of the reasons that it makes, you know, one of the reasons why raid days are smaller. It's easier to get that sort of aggregate tracking spin data on a smaller window than on a larger one. You're getting more concentrated information of how your customer base moves.
Oh, it's like moving out through the game.
Right. So like when you have a smaller window and you're forcing everybody to be together, you're getting better data than when it was spread out over 6 hours and people were coming and going, right? Like there's different data you're getting from both, and ultimately the smaller window creates just it's a better thing to go to advertisers and other people with, say like, this is what we can present. We can present traffic movement. We can present activations. We can do all these things. And it's not your personal data. It is aggregated data where your personality is stripped out. And your comfort with that, again, this goes back to what will happen with sleep. Your comfort with them having aggregate data about your medical stuff and your sleep schedules is up to you, how comfortable you feel having that anonymous, overarching stuff sent out.
I do think sleep is going to need a lot more personal data than Pokemon Go
Oh,
does.
I guarantee it, but we'll burn that bridge when we get there.
I still think the shocking thing is like we're 7 years in and it just doesn't feel like Niantic strikes that many deals with companies.
No.
Like
Yeah.
the Kung Fu Tea thing is kind of shocking of like, oh, because I feel like we would just get one of those like a month of like.
I feel like I feel like they play a very smart game of they don't make the deals that they're making very obvious, because I guarantee they are doing things behind the scenes for advertising for other things that are much more hidden and hard to see. I think they understand that when people see deals like that happen, if they happen on a regular clip, especially when people are already saying like, how are you selling my personal data? I think they play a very smart game in limiting how much that actually makes itself apparent in the game. So it's easy to not think about.
And the other thing Michael confirmed was like the Pikmin team is working on Pikmin, the Pokemon Go team is working on Pokemon. Like it's not like what was the new thing there? Oh, the Monster Hunter stuff, where they announced like a Monster Hunter game and people were like, well, that they don't care about Pokemon Go anymore. It's like, no, that's a whole different team.
Another team.
So he did answer that.
I mean, people who worked on Go may switch over to that team, right? Like,
Sure. Yeah.
it is a separate team that is forming. It does not mean they're taking resources away from Go. People may from Go move over there, but most likely they will backfill those positions.
Right. Anything else, Hannah? Anything else that we missed?
I'm looking through my notes, and I think that the only thing is just that they kind of started and ended the interview with Michael saying that they haven't been very good at communication, and he's hoping that they can get better at communication. So,
All honesty,
We'll
this
see.
interview.
Hopefully.
They did start
Hopefully.
off with like the dev diary stuff, which was like Niantic's way of communication. And then Michael was like, yeah, we did a bad job at this. We bit off more than we could chew. We couldn't put them out every other month. So
And they weren't
we
what
probably
players
should have
were
told
looking
you.
for.
Yeah. And then he was like, we probably should have told you we couldn't do this anymore. But, you know, we're telling you now. We'll still do dev diaries, but they'll be when they feel appropriate.
and we will see when they happen, if they are actually dev diaries or if they're just advertisements again.
Yeah, I mean, like, I did still feel like the dev diaries were like, there's a lot of nothing here. When I played Destiny, Bungie would do like a dev update every like Thursday. And if you ever went to like the subreddit, well, if you want a toxic subreddit, Destiny the game, r/Destiny. But like, it would just be people like, there's nothing in this update. And it's like, well, how much do you expect them to do in like 6 days? Like, that's like, like every single week we get an update. They're all not going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they are.
Having been on a developer team, I am not surprised if every month was a little bit too much for that kind of thing. But also, I know that what the players wanted was explanations for decisions. And what they didn't give in any of the dev diaries was explanations for decisions.
I think one of them
The
did.
PvP one was close.
He does have a whole section on PvP and how much he likes it and the bugs and the frustration, but
I will say that it is naive to think that a corporation is ever going to explain their decisions to you.
I mean, they or have the ability to try to spin it in a positive way.
Right.
Sometimes you just don't have a way to spin it.
They don't have a way to spin them. I mean, the answers you are going to get are PR approved. So,
Right.
like, just understand you are never going to get transparency from a corporation. That is just not a thing.
That's kind of why I was like okay with this interview, because like I think the only question he kind of shied away from, or not, like he didn't even shy away from it. He was just like, I'm done talking about this, was like the remote raid. Like he was pretty much like, should have been limited. We needed to increase the price because it was unbalancing everything else in the store.
I mean,
yeah, it sucks.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, and then he was like, can we kind of move on? Cause like, what else? How I can't spin this anymore. Like
Right.
there's, it sucks. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to talk in circles here?
I mean,
Yeah.
people just need to understand that the answer is it sucks. And there's never going to be a better answer.
Yeah. That was the only question where it was like kind of obvious, where he was like, let's move on. Cause like, nothing's going to make you happy. Play a different game. I mean, I still can't, man, that answer was so like, yep, yeah. Is he going to say it? Is he going to, oh, yep, he said it. Just play a different game. he just said it. Okay. All right. Take it for what it's worth, I suppose. Niantic has a vision, and gosh darn it, they are definitely sticking to that vision. You gotta respect them a little bit for that. They love their outdoor game. I will say, again, I say this every episode, I'm very privileged to be in a very big city that also happens to have the best indoor place to play, hands down.
Yeah, the indoor spot really gives y'all a big boost during the cold months. Because when
I don't
it's
think I
cold and
could've-
rainy here.
I honestly don't think I would have been able to play for a full. What I wanted to do yesterday, again, personal story, is I wanted to go to a park and play, and I stepped outside and I was like, I can't do this. It's too hot. Darn you, Niantic. It's 93 degrees out.
Oh, it was so hot yesterday.
And I went to Mall of America, and there were golden lures everywhere. Things were lured up. I could walk in a square. There's bathrooms. I could get something to drink. And after an hour, I was like, this is great. There's no way I could have done this outside at all. It was just too hot.
I mean,
part of the problem is you wear 17 layers at
That's
all
true, that's
times. You could
It
strip
was
some of those
very-
layers down.
It was very comfortable.
yeah. And I mean, part of that starts to get into the places where there's more shade, the places where there's more natural paths, more trees. Unless it's a city park, there aren't as many Pokestops because you can't submit Pokestops where there's not a sign or a placard.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
that's a personal frustration. It's not as big a problem as for people who live in rural areas and literally don't have the stuff around. That's a little bit different. But when I want to go on a hike and play Pokemon Go at the same time, I can't, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing a hike, but then I would be like, oh, there's no Pokestops. What am I
Right?
supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Looking at nature? I don't want to do that. I want to catch a Weedle up here.
I cannot imagine you on a hike.
I could do a hike. Yeah, let's do a hike,
I
Rick.
cannot.
Can we figure I gotta figure out my foot thing first.
I'm just thinking within 5 minutes, we are going to throw you off a cliff because you're complaining about your feet. Like
100%. Nah, the Crocs are okay, but I don't think Crocs are good hiking shoes.
you can't
They're
hike in
fine.
Crocs.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, can I
You
get one of those
shouldn't
sticks?
hike in Crocs.
I've
Maybe you
hiked
should.
in heels. You can
you
hike in
shouldn't
whatever.
do that either.
Can we put that on a shirt, Hannah? I've hiked in heels.
Yes. So what have we got? Make shinies
I mean, I'm pretty
valuable
against
again.
the idea of heels at this point. I think they're bad for your feet. But
Oh, heels are awful. I
Yeah.
do not get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't like.
I'm one of those people who wears the toe shoes that are like gloves for your feet. Those are my
Oh.
preferred shoes. Those are
Well, this
great
is the
for
last
hiking.
podcast Hannah's on. Jeez.
We found the limit.
The toe
I've
shoes.
been wearing them almost my whole life. I stopped
All right,
for
wrap
a
it
while
up.
and
This
I went
has
back
been
to
like
them.
5 hours talking
Wrap
about
it up.
Go. We're
All
out.
right.
I'm done. I got a life to lead here.
Well, thank you for listening. Thanks for making it to the end. If you're watching on YouTube, what are you going to comment? Comment which Pokemon you were most excited for that got added to Scarlet and Violet with the home update. Maybe it brought back a favorite legend. Maybe you liked a Hisui Pokemon. Maybe that was Carbink for you. But
Yeah, always
There's
Carbink.
something going on with Carbink.
But thank you for making it to the end. We'll be back next week. And hopefully there'll be raids in Scarlet and Violet. Maybe not. Easy fix. It's only taken them a full month.
Easy fix. Nothing went wrong.
Easy peasy. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Hannah. We will see you guys next week. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are
Super effective.
Waiting with bated breath to see if Scarlet and Violet will have raids again ever. Super effective.
That boat sailed. We're done.
Shut it down.
Shut
Play
it
a different
down.
game.